What if the person pulling away from you is secretly hoping you'll come closer? Not because they're playing games, not because they don't care, but because they're just as afraid as you are. And the terrifying part is, both of you might be waiting for the other person to make the first move while the connection slowly dies in silence. Welcome to Psycho Library. There's a strange kind of pain that doesn't look painful from the outside. No screaming, no dramatic ending, just two people who feel something real and still can't reach each other. You replay conversations in your head. You notice the pauses, the delayed replies, the moments that almost became something deeper before one of you changed the subject. And somewhere inside you, there's this feeling you can't fully explain. This could have been something. But fear has a way of disguising itself as logic. So instead of saying what we feel, we analyze. Instead of risking rejection, we protect our pride. Instead of being honest, we become careful. And little by little, two people who want the same thing begin acting like strangers. The hardest part? Most of the time, neither person realizes the other is scared too. They just assume disinterest. And that misunderstanding changes everything. People often believe emotional distance means emotional absence. But that's rarely true. Some of the coldest behavior comes from people who feel too much. That's the hidden truth nobody talks about. The person who avoids eye contact after a deep moment. The person who suddenly becomes distant after getting emotionally close. The person who types a long message and deletes it. They're not always losing feelings. Sometimes they're losing control, because genuine connection activates something powerful inside people. Something vulnerable, something dangerous. It forces them to confront uncertainty. What if I care more than they do? What if I open up and they leave? What if this becomes important to me and I lose it? So they hesitate, not because the connection is weak, because it matters too much. And ironically, when two emotionally guarded people meet each other, they often create the exact outcome they're both trying to avoid. Silence, misinterpretation, distance. They both crave reassurance, but neither wants to look needy. They both want closeness, but neither wants to risk humiliation. So they become emotionally strategic instead of emotionally honest. And strategy kills intimacy. Because real connection cannot grow inside a constant state of self-protection. You can feel this tension in small moments. Two people lingering in conversation longer than necessary. A goodbye that feels heavier than it should. The way someone remembers tiny details about you but acts emotionally detached. Those contradictions are not random. They're emotional fingerprints. Proof that someone is trying to hide what they cannot fully suppress. And maybe you've experienced this yourself. Maybe there's someone you think about more than you admit. Someone whose name changes your mood instantly. Someone you almost text at night but don't. Not because you don't care, because you do too much. Human beings are wired for connection, but we are also wired for self-protection. And those two instincts are constantly fighting each other. That's why love and fear often arrive together. When someone begins to matter emotionally, your brain stops treating the situation casually. Suddenly, there's something to lose. And the moment there's something to lose, fear enters the room. Fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear of looking foolish, fear of not being enough. Most people think confidence means not being afraid. But emotionally mature people understand something deeper. Almost everyone is afraid when something feels real. They just hide it differently. Some people become distant. Some become overly casual. Some joke too much. Some disappear for days trying to regain emotional control. And because everyone expresses fear differently, we misread each other constantly. A quiet person gets labeled uninterested. A cautious person gets labeled cold. A nervous person gets labeled confusing. But underneath all those behaviors is usually the same emotional question. Am I safe with you? That question controls more human behavior than most people realize. Because vulnerability is not just emotional exposure. It's emotional risk. When someone admits they care, they are handing another person the power to hurt them. And for people who've been disappointed before, that feels dangerous. So they create emotional defenses. They wait for certainty before expressing feelings. They search for guarantees before taking risks. They expect the other person to go first. But connection doesn't work that way. Real relationships are built when someone chooses honesty before certainty exists. That's the paradox. The thing both people want most requires the exact thing they're both avoiding, vulnerability. And fear becomes strongest precisely when the connection has potential. That's why emotionally meaningful relationships often begin with confusion instead of clarity. Because two people are trying to protect themselves while secretly hoping the other person sees through the walls. Imagine this. Two people meet unexpectedly. At first it's casual, light conversation. Nothing serious, but then something shifts. The conversations become longer. The eye contact lingers. They start noticing each other in crowded rooms without trying, and slowly, without saying it directly, they become emotionally important to each other. But neither person fully acknowledges it. One of them wants to text first every day, but worries about seeming desperate. The other checks their phone constantly, but waits hours to reply so they don't look too invested. Both people are thinking about each other, yet both are performing emotional restraint. Then one night they have a conversation that feels unusually real, the kind where silence feels intimate instead of awkward. For a moment, the emotional distance disappears, and that moment scares them. The next day, things feel different. One person becomes quieter, the other notices the change and pulls back too. Neither talks about it. Instead, they both start overthinking. Maybe I imagined everything. Maybe they lost interest. I should stop caring so much. But the truth is far more painful. They both care deeply. They're both afraid. And they're both waiting for emotional safety that can only be created by honesty. So the connection enters this strange emotional limbo. Not friendship. Not love. Not closure. Just unresolved tension. And this happens everywhere. In relationships that almost started. In conversations that almost became confessions. In people who almost chose each other. Sometimes years pass like this. Two people carrying the same feelings in complete silence. And eventually life moves forward. One person enters another relationship. The other pretends they're unaffected, but deep down both still remember. Not because the relationship happened, because it didn't. There's a unique kind of haunting attached to emotional possibilities. The what if becomes heavier than reality itself, because the mind can accept heartbreak more easily than uncertainty. At least heartbreak gives you an ending, but unanswered feelings stay open. That's why certain people remain in your memory for years despite so little actually happening between you. Your emotions were never fully expressed. The story never fully completed itself, and somewhere inside you, part of your mind is still waiting for the ending that never came. But here's the deeper realization most people discover too late. Fear does not protect connection, it protects ego. And sometimes the greatest tragedy in human relationships is not rejection. It's mutual hesitation. Two people standing on opposite sides of the same emotional wall, both hoping the other person tears it down first. The painful irony is this: many connections don't fail because feelings were absent. They fail because courage was absent, because people kept waiting for certainty in situations that required vulnerability. And maybe this is something you needed to hear. Not every emotional risk will lead to love. Not every confession will create the ending you hope for. But silence has consequences too. People often regret the things they never said more than the things they said imperfectly. Because honesty creates clarity. Silence creates imagination. And imagination can trap someone emotionally for years. So if there's someone in your life where the tension feels unfinished, where both of you seem emotionally trapped between closeness and fear, ask yourself something honestly. Are you protecting your heart? Or are you protecting yourself from vulnerability? Because there's a difference. One leads to wisdom. The other leads to loneliness disguised as control. Sometimes all a connection needs is one honest moment, one sentence, one risk, one person willing to stop hiding. And even if it doesn't end perfectly, there's peace in knowing you were real. There's peace in no longer wondering. The strongest people are not the ones who never fear rejection. They're the ones who decide truth matters more than emotional safety. Because at the end of the day, human beings don't just want love. They want to feel emotionally seen. And that only happens when someone is brave enough to be honest first. If this video spoke to something you've felt but never fully explained, leave a comment below. I want to know which part felt most personal to you. And if you enjoy psychologically deep content like this, make sure to like the video and subscribe to Psycho Library for more explorations into human behavior, emotional patterns, and the hidden truths behind relationships. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.